Welcome to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer. And are we on live stream?
Yes.
We are on live stream. Hallelujah. Okay. Well, you can also check us out on Facebook at the Peak News Media, and also on YouTube at the Peak News if you want to see what we look like. Some say I do have a face for radio, and you can see if they're right about that. Well, welcome to the Peak, where we say the quiet stuff out loud, and this is Faith and Family Wednesday. Topics that are not necessarily part of news programming and news shows, but they should be, because if we're covering a society, what could be more core to a community than faith and family? And so we have a guest today. I'm going to tell you who it is in a little bit, but we're doing something that radio used to do a lot and doesn't do so much anymore, especially on news talk. But they don't even do it on music stations anymore, which is to do a live performance inside the studio. And so we've been setting that up to do that, and that's really exciting because we have someone who is a worship leader on today. And again, I'm going to tease you on that and let you know who that is in a moment. Well, we here at the Peak News really want you to be involved. We want you to plug into your community. We want you to take the information that we give you on a daily basis, the people that you meet here day by day, and have it inspire you or even connect with them, maybe get involved with the organizations that they're involved in. But more than anything, do something. We all really need to get out there and do something. And in my job, I'm always working with people who are doing things. And so I get to be around that a lot, and I hope that you are too. But if you're not, well, you can get that dose here. And that means that you're not going to be passive. That means that you are going to say, you know what, there's things in my neighborhood, there's things in my town, in my city, in my region. If you want to go farther than that, that's fine. I don't feel that I can, do much, at least at this point, outside of like El Paso County. I don't leave El Paso County, but here I know that I can make a difference. And for you, maybe it's bigger, smaller, it doesn't matter. We're not comparing that. Your calling is your calling. But the fact is, you have to step into it. You really do. People are waiting for that. Not only do you immediately serve those people, maybe it's some children in your neighborhood. Maybe it's cleaning up an area park. Maybe it's being part of Neighborhood Watch. Maybe it's running for office. I don't know. You have to answer that for yourself. But I know that we each need to do that. First of all, it's incredibly satisfying. It really is, because you get outside yourself. But it inspires other people. When people see people doing things, for the most part, it inspires them. Some people it angers them, because they don't want to do anything. But for those who we want to inspire. And so if you're listening to News Talk Radio, I figure you're the kind of person who wants to do something. And I want to give you a little, say, kick in the tush and to just get out there. So, do you have worship in you? And that takes many forms. I know we've distilled that down to not just music, but a form of worship to be compared with praise and all of those things, and have compartmentalized that in big ways. But worship comes in many forms. In fact, and I've a Jewish background, I'm a Messianic Jew. In Judaism and Hebraic thought, your work and your worship are identical. This is how you pay it forward and you pay it back. You're here on the earth, you're taking up resources. How do you increase that? How do you bring it forward? So there are many ways to worship, but how do you? And do you feel that the way, in a standard way, if you're a Christian or maybe you're in another religion, do you feel that like the old-timey stuff, as it said, is it relevant in our generation, or do we get stuck in the past and God, the cloud moves, right? And we're supposed to move with it. So today on the program, Faith and Family Wednesday, we have Jared Anderson. He's a local worship leader and songwriter of Great I Am and Amazed, among other songs. And he served for many years as part of the New Life Worship and the Desperation Band. Works with World Challenge now, and he's going to be with us for the hour, talking about worship culture and, at one point, playing his famous Great I Am song live here in the studio. Jared Anderson, welcome to the Peak.
So good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you here. So, finding new expressions of worship in our time is what we're going to be focusing on the Peak today, Faith and Family. Also, when we come back in the headline segment, we're going to be talking about this new executive order that President Trump signed in order to limit or eliminate anti-Christian bias, which we've all felt is running very rampant throughout our culture here. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. We're here with worship leader Jared Anderson, and we'll be back in a moment.
How many kids do you have?
6. And a grandson.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'm 6 as well.
Yeah, what ages?
20 to 13.
Oh, that's almost identical.
Two,
The mic's extra,
Oh.
can we change that?
Shoot. Yeah, because it's set from when I was recording last night.
Well, I don't know, actually, it was like this yesterday too.
Yeah, I know,
During
but
the
what
show.
has to happen is it has to be on internal mic and auto, and now that should be bouncing real quick. Go check it.
I'll go check it.
Yeah, that's what I
Things
think.
would normally.
Yeah. I have, 21 to almost 22 to 12 and a half
okay.
today, actually.
Wow.
He's 12 and a half today.
Wow.
So, we have those news articles, please.
Yes.
So I can quickly assimilate. Let's see. Okay, I'll just basically I'll read this. Okay, that's an easy one. Have you seen that church? Do you drive Woodman?
What's up?
Do you drive Woodman out like Mark Sheffel area? Have you seen this church going up?
I haven't seen
Out
it.
there?
No, I've been to their other location that
Okay.
is over by.
Looks beautiful, I'm sure
west side.
inside it must if they copy that artwork.
Yeah.
But that gold dome was sitting there
Yeah.
for months. It was sitting there on the ground and I'm like,
Oh wow.
are they putting up a mosque? Like what's...
Which direction is this
I
going?
actually did. I'll admit, if you're on the Facebook feed, I actually called up our county clerk, who's a friend of mine, Steve
Oh, yeah.
Schleicher, and I went, "What are they building out there? Are we getting a mosque out there?" I wanted to know, and he said, "No, it's a church."
Father Anthony.
You know him? You know
I
that?
did. Yeah,
Okay.
he passed.
Okay. Oh, so you can really talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great, wonderful. And then Valentine's.
Express Printing is your one-stop family-owned print shop in Colorado Springs. In business for more than 30 years, Express is part of our community. Located at 3434 West Carefree Circle, Express Printing is friendly, fast, and affordable, offering a variety of printing, office, and design services. John and Barb will know you on a first-name basis and work out great solutions for all your printing needs. For more info, go to Express.
So what do you think talking about for Valentine's? I mean, just romance.
It's a stretch, man.
I know.
That's
And
such
a lot of
stretch.
times on this, it's just
Right.
it's like we just sort of make stuff up to
Sure.
talk. We see where it goes,
Yeah.
but it's good. It's just it's sort of small talk.
Yeah.
It even says here the whole history of the whole thing is sketchy. This is from the History Channel. Give it 1 minute.
Our vision is a Kingdom of God revolution in the Rockies through empowering people to change the world. We believe this is best accomplished through building men into leaders. Hello, I'm Dr. Steve Wolf, the senior pastor of the Road at Chapel Hill.
Perhaps more disappointing for the romantics among us, the early accounts of the two Valentines, there were actually possibly two Valentines that got combined, are typical martyrdom stories stressing the saints' miracles and gruesome deaths.
Oh, we're starting.
Okay. Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to us on AM 1460 and FM 101.1 The Answer. It's Faith and Family Wednesday here on the Peak. And we have Jared Anderson with us, local worship leader and songwriter of Great I Am, and he will be performing that later on in the program. This is our headline segment where we banter over the headlines, and so we're going to get going with that again. Jared, thanks so much for being on today.
Absolutely.
So the first article, I'm excited about this, and I heard about it, but been so busy, didn't have a chance to read about it, and maybe you heard about it too. President Donald J. Trump eradicates anti-Christian bias. This is, I'm taking this article actually off the White House website, and this is based on an executive order eradicating anti-Christian bias. President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order. This was February 6th. February 6th. Signed an executive order establishing a task force to end the anti-Christian weaponization of government and unlawful conduct targeting Christians. The task force, officially known as the Task Force to Eradicate Anti-Christian Bias, will be comprised of members of President Trump's cabinet and key government agencies. The task force will review the activities of all departments and agencies to identify and eliminate anti-Christian policies, practices, or conduct. It will gather information from various stakeholders to ensure broad perspectives are considered, including faith-based organizations, state, local, and tribal governments, and Americans affected by anti-Christian conduct. It will identify and address gaps in laws and enforcements that have contributed to anti-Christian conduct, including by remedying any failures to fully enforce the law against acts of anti-Christian hostility, vandalism, and violence. It will recommend further presidential or legislative actions necessary to rectify past wrongs and protect American religious liberties, and it will submit an annual report on its progress with a final report upon its conclusion. This is amazing for two things. One is, how in the world is there anti-Christian bias in America? I mean, there are many, many nations around the world that are non-dominant Christian nations, including, Muslim nations, Hindu nations, and we know they persecute Christians, they kill Christians. But how did we end up in a country where, whether you believe that people are actually Christian or not, and questioning whether they're actually Christian, but culturally they identify as Christian, it's still something like 70 or 80% of the people in the country. How does this happen?
Yeah.
That we get to the point, one, it's wonderful. Now, the great thing is it's being recognized and routed out, but this is being routed out of government institutions, not just going around and saying, hey, we have hate groups or the religious groups that are persecuting Christians. By the way, if you don't know it, that there's been a lot, the number one persecuted religious group in our country is Jews. I mean, there's a lot of anti-Semitic activity, mostly coming from those who are Muslim or anti-Israel people. So that's known as a societal persecution. But this is talking about routing it out of our institutions.
Right.
Jared, what do you think about this? How did we get this far?
I
To
don't
a
know.
dominant Christian country having to route anti-Christianism out of its government?
Yeah, is it a popularity stunt, to say, hey, we're serious about the people that put us into office, and we're gonna show you we're getting after it because you voted for us. And I think there are, like you said, the persecution kind of in a corporate and governmental, institutional. There's this thin lining of like, don't give us any of that Christ stuff. And so maybe that's gotten into the lawyers and worked that into the fabric of our policy, and they're going to go a little bit on a witch hunt and get it out of there.
Yeah, I mean, we've known for years, even reading the Bible in school, or students wearing Christian
Yeah,
T-shirts or whatever, while everything else is laissez-faire, is let it go. But I, people know now, and this came out many years ago, that under the Obama administration, the IRS was being used to not grant or slow roll 501c3 applications for Christian and pro-Israel groups. And I actually experienced that. I was living in Israel at the time, as we're dual citizens, and we were trying to start a nonprofit for the benefit of Israel. I'm trying to remember the year. Was that during the Obama administration, because we were trying to raise money for Israel's, I think it was 60th or 65th birthday, I think it was. had an organization to help the children. It was the Year of the Children, and they took the full, whatever it is, 27 months
Oh my gosh.
that they get
Yeah.
before they granted it, and by then it was over our funding, like we couldn't get our funding. So we actually experienced
Yeah.
that was a very real thing, that the IRS was
Yeah.
weaponized against Christians and pro-Israel people.
Yeah, and it's hard to legislate these things, right? Because if somebody has it out for you, they can put stuff in your way, whether it's in
Right.
writing or not. So
Well, but it's the bureaucracy. It's the fourth part of government
Right.
that this whole Doge and everything else is
Yeah.
now coming after. So thank you, President Trump, and I would hope that there's no anti-anything bias in the government, because there's not. It's just supposed to be pro-Americanism. That's all that's all that's supposed to be. Okay, moving on. A new Orthodox church rises in Colorado Springs. If you drive along the Woodman corridor out from Falcon Payton area, as I do, we've been seeing this going up for a long time. There's a big gold dome sitting there, but I was wondering what it was. But it is an Orthodox church, which is from I believe the Russian Orthodox, but it's not called that.
Eastern,
In,
I think.
is it Eastern Orthodox? And it's what's here, Russian roots. The Orthodox Church traces its roots to first century Christian churches, let's see, Orthodox Church in America split from Russia in 1924 after disruptions from the Bolshevik Revolution. So it's a separate church, but it's Orthodox. It's in that line of very ancient churches. And if you think we're in a post-Christian world, right here we have an ancient denomination rising up on Woodman in a very populous new area of our city. What do you make of that, Jared?
It's such a gift. I have a close friend named Jeff Morrison who his father converted to Orthodoxy, and he went to Christ for the Nations in Dallas, very more like Protestant, charismatic, progressive, if you will, socially, and converted to and became a Eastern Orthodox priest, and he welcomed me into just exposing me to traditions and the rituals and it's the different way of seeking, but it really expanded my palette for worship and adoration and for the tradition and the saints and the stories in ways that I think we just live, I don't know, the current evangelical Christian community kind of lives in moment to moment. We only go back as far as our parents, basically, in many ways, and then behind our parents just to the Bible and nothing in between, right? So he kind of like really helped me fill in the gaps. So I really appreciate the tradition. I think we need a little bit more variety in the evangelical community in Colorado Springs, and this is a huge addition.
Well, evangelicalism in a way, it's almost like progressivism. It's like what's new, right? It's always what's new. And as a Jewish person, a Messianic Jew, I mean, our history goes back, 3,500 years. So I have my traditions that I keep within Christianity, although, I'm often told that's wrong to do. But I think that what people are looking for is that connection to things that aren't the newest, shiniest thing, but are ancient, and that's good. Rituals are good as long as they don't become your faith.
Personally, having walked through the scandal of Ted Haggard in 2006 being on staff, a close friend of mine was on staff with me, went into an Anglican tradition, just longing for those deep roots that are more solid than the personality that tends to sweep the mindset and the voice tends to be the loudest voice in the room.
Yeah, because in those, I mean, of course, within Catholicism, there's the Pope, but there's less of the personality within the churches. It's really the ritual that gets the focus, whichever priest happens to be on that day, not people looking at the Jumbotron, which, again, all of these things can be done in balance, but we're human beings and we tend to fall out of that. Well, we were going to be doing something on Valentine's Day and St. Valentine's, but we're going to have to wait that for tomorrow. Just to remind all the men out there, if it's important to your wife, you got a day and a half. I'm Goldman the Watchman. We'll be back with Jared Anderson, and we'll be playing Great I Am. Okay, so we got 3.5 minutes. We got to set up. Okay, ready for the music.
Easy.
Okay. And so time cues. I'll just 1 minute. That's all you need. Okay. And by the way, if you ever see this is wrap it up.
Yep.
That means
That's easy.
10 or 15 seconds. Not so much for the music, but if I have to move on to a question or whatever.
Okay.
So Zach, can you be in a way where you don't block him, but you're still in camera? Because we have a really, really tight.
Also, can you, while you're there, can you turn off the mic anymore? Because it's still kind of quiet yesterday.
They're both on auto, so I don't know what's going
Well,
on.
it was quiet yesterday even before you changed the setting.
Yeah, but I think the setting may have been off.
But it's just quieter than normal. I think it's got a little louder though now since you changed it.
I mean, this is on auto, both are on auto, so it's peaking high, so there must be something else going on that we should solve before tomorrow.
Okay.
If the feed is being low, but you're getting, I mean, it's solid, it's bouncing up in the 7-8 range.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe because you're close by. I don't know. But yeah, I mean it's manageable, I think. But I just want people to be aware.
No, yeah, for sure. People yesterday wrote on the Facebook, like, please turn it up. And Matt's in there on the. Okay, so Zach, if you're gonna wanna be on camera at all, you're gonna have to like turn around.
Yes. So I'm right here, and then I'll be house.
Okay.
Camera if I'm like here.
It's just a matter of me sort of getting on the camera. I mean, I wanna focus on you guys. I mean, there's where we're at. So I'll have to lean in.
Pretty good, but I can scooch a little forward too. All right, should be good.